Good morning, everyone. Let's start our Thursday class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Tat Savitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Astoma Sadgamya, Tamsoma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Mritam Gamya. ओम सहना भवतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 ओम. We started looking at the next section in this chapter, and this section states what happens to a knower of Brahma and to the ignorant person after the phenomena called death, the physical body's death. In the case of the knower of Brahma, or you can call it a sage who has realized the Supreme, other people, that person's relatives, friends, or anybody around him, they see the fall of his body. When the elements of which the physical body is constituted merge into the universal counterparts and also their cause. Mind merges into Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic mind. So his individuality dissolves in universality. So this happens to the realized sage. In the absence of individuality, universality loses its meaning, and what remains is the supreme reality only. Brahma, that's it. The non-dual Brahma. This Brahma is everywhere. That's why it is said that a knower of Brahma does not leave, does not go anywhere, because Brahma is everywhere. There's no movement in the space for this kind of a personality. This person does not have any rebirth. He gets a sadhya mukti. Sadhya mukti means immediate liberation. So this is the ultimate. And what remains of such a sage? Nothing but his or her name, or the deeds that person did in this phenomenal world. This name has no end and is as though infinite and immortal. And if a person meditates on the name as non-different from the Vishwadeva, who are also infinite, one can attain the infinite. That's why they say that Ram Nam, or the Om, or Shiv, or any other name, divine name, we can utter and we can transcend this world. Though the process of dissolution of the elements in their cosmic counterpart is the same as in the case of the ignorant person. Because body of the ignorant person is made from the same 5 elements as the body of the sage. But the only difference is the ignorant person is reborn in a new body, and sage is not. And what is the cause of his rebirth? It is the past karmas and unfulfilled desires the subtle sanskars or impressions. That is the cause for the rebirth. We all know the subject of the karma is very deep and very subtle also. Because karma in this context does not mean any action, either physical or mental. It is a particular attitude of the whole personality with which one thinks, speaks, and acts. So, in other words, it's the motive behind all those actions. Because out of ignorance of the real nature of our personality, we forget it. It is not true that every thought or action is productive of a future birth. The same way, it's not all desires that cause rebirth. There cannot be 100% satisfactory answer to the great question of death and birth as long as one is in the relative realm. And we are in a relative realm. We cannot understand. That's why Lord Krishna also said, to understand karma, it's gahan. It's very deep, very hard to understand, while we have this limited mind and body and intellect. So we have to transcend this phenomenal world through knowledge of the reality. Only then we can attain the true answer to the cause of rebirth. But what happens? The question itself dissolves once you transcend this relative world. There's no necessity for the answer either. And this is what happens. We might have many, many questions when we are sitting in front of a realized saint. All the questions are gone. They evaporate, at least momentarily. So this is what he's talking about in this section, which we are going to cover today. So just 2 more verses left in this chapter, or in this section, I should say. Let's look at on page number 205. And if you remember, this was the conversation with Rishi Yagyavalkya, who is answering the questions or the answers, and questions are being asked by Arth Bhaga, because there are several rishis over there doing the yajna. So let's look at verse number 12. Yage valketi hovacha yatrayam purusho mriyate kim enam na jahat iti nam iti anantam venam ananta vishve deva anantam eva satena lokam jyati. Yagyavalkya said to Artbhaga, when this man dies, what is that which does not leave him? Okay. The way it's translated, it looks like Yagyavalkya is saying, but actually Artbhaga is asking, when this man dies, what is that which does not leave him? And Yagyavalkya said, the name only. The name verily is infinite, and infinite are the Vishvadevas. He who knows this wins indeed an infinite world through that. So Yagyavalkya is answering the question which is put by the rishi or the priest Artbhaga. This mantra is given in order to eulogize the liberated person. Because liberated person has removed or destroyed the cause of bondage. cause of bondage, the ignorance, has been removed from his subtle body. Although the liberated person dies, because death is a must. Anybody who's born must die. So liberated person also dies. And everything connected with him gets united with the self. One thing which continues, which is connected with his personality even after death. It is a name which continues to persist in the mouths of people. That's what he's saying. The name remains. We all know that the name of such a person continues even after his death. It alone does not die or become united in his self. Even though the name is identical with the personality, it exists in spite of the disappearance of the personality itself. Of course, to the person of realization, even that name has no existence, no importance, because that person identifies himself only with the non-dual consciousness, which is Brahma. But the name does become eternal for this kind of a person. Eternity of the name is itself the infinitude. So even after thousands of years, the names of these kind of personalities, people say with reverence. A person who meditates on that also attains endless infinite worlds. So this is what he is telling in order to answer Arth Bhag's question. Let's look at next verse, the last verse. Yagye valkeheti hovacha yatrasye purushasye mritasye agnim vagapye iti vatam pranaha chakshur adityam manaschandram dishashrotram prithvim shriram akasham atma aushadhi lomani vanaspatin keshaha apsu lohitam charetam retrashva nidhiyate kayam tada purusho bhav iti ahar somye hast marg bhag avam etasya vedishyayava na nav etat sajan iti to hot kramye mantra chakrakate toh yadvachatuh karamah ev taduchatu ath yat prashansastu karamah ev tat prashansantu punyo ve punyen karmana bhavati papaha papaniti tatah jarat karv arth bhag upramah iti dvityam brahmanam. Yagyavalkya, and again Arth Bhag said, so he is asking Yagyavalkya, when the organ of speech of a man is absorbed in fire, the nose in air, the eye in the sun, the mind in the moon, the ear in the directions, the body in earth, the ether of the heart in the external ether, the hair on the body in herbs, the hair on the head in trees, and the blood and the seed are deposited in water. On what does he then rest? Give me your hand, gentle Arth Bhag. So this is being said by Rishi Yagyavalkya. We too only shall ascertain it. This topic of ours is not to be decided in an assembly. Because if you remember, there was a yagya going on with several priests and countless other people. So he said, we will go out and discuss this. They retired and discussed it. What they talked of was only work, and what they eulogized was also work. One becomes noble through righteous work and ignoble through unrighteous work. Thereupon Artbhag of the line of Jaratkaru kept quiet. So that means he was satisfied with all those answers which he got from Rishi Yajnavalkya. So in the last two mantras, Rishi Yajnavalkya has said about a liberated soul who has become free from the bondage of the graha and atigraha. If you remember those two terms, graha means the organs, atigraha means the objects. What happens to the soul in bondage is being discussed in this particular mantra. The speech, the vital breath, eye, mind, ear, inner space, hair, blood, semen are set to get united into the respective sources. So where they came from, that's where they go. So whether it's a liberated person or whether it's an unliberated person, the physical body goes back to the physical nature. So Artbhag inquires the whereabouts of this person when the physical personality disintegrates due to the departure of the vital force. So he wants to know about the liberated person. It is a well-established fact that the individual Jeev, the Jeevatma, which has not attained self-realization, persists even after the death of the body. We study that in all the scriptures and assumes various forms one after another and moves from one body to another. Okay, it's like this is called a keep on going into the cycle of birth and death if we are not liberated. The concept that the jeevs, which have enough material in the form of sanskars, move by some unseen force and take new bodies, and this fact has been accepted by all the great thinkers. But they do differ with regard to the impelling force, which is the determining factor of such a transmigration. So there are different theories about that. One cannot easily escape by shoving it to the law of accident, that it happened accidentally, or nature or time. So cannot just reason it out with those arguments. Transmigration is the continuation of the personality on account of its attachment to objects perceptible to and conceivable by the senses and the mind. This is all the primary scriptures of Sanatana Dharma talk about. Wherever our attachment is, that's where we end up sooner or later. This attachment persists up to the time of release. Until then, the personality assumes various bodies and different births. Transmigration is a process of fashioning of the jeev into the forms suitable for fulfilling the desires which are lying in our chit unfulfilled. As long as this process of fashioning and refashioning continues, the personality persists and proceeds from one kind of a life to another. So that's why they say that everybody has taken countless lives. Because this Jivatma catches hold of a new body before leaving the old body, actually. Sometimes it happens that quickly, too. It's almost like a leech, they say, because attachment is so strong. Transmigration is a process of jeeves going from one body to another with no change in the essential material that it carries with it. And what it is carrying? The mind, the intellect, the chit, and the ego. So that baggage goes with that Jivatma. The physical body is left behind. We cannot take the physical body. We cannot take the objects, but we can definitely take the subtle part of it. So the only thing the Jeev loses at the time of death is the old physical personality. And what it has brought to the new body is the subtle personality, which has the sense impressions and the other essential factors which we have been talking about. So it is clear that the unliberated Jeev's journey in different modes of empirical life continues. But now the point is, which these two are discussing, what steps it takes after the fall of the physical body. What happens to the Jeev after death if it's not liberated is the question. This question includes the problem of a Jeev's fate during the intermediate period also. Before taking the next birth, what really happens in between? The question is, where then is this person? That's the question Arthabhag is asking. Or you can say the fate of the Jeev during the period of transition, if you want to use that term, from one body to another and thereafter. This question is answered differently by different schools of thought, actually. Because this question has been asked by thinkers, the philosophers in every age. There is a philosophy, the darshan, which is called Mimamsa. Mimamsa holds that it is the nature which determines the meta-psychosis of the Jiva. The nature over here means the swabhav. That's our nature. On the other hand, the materialists believe in mere change, which, however, does not accept rebirth, but they assert that every occurrence of individuals coming into existence is accidental. They think that it just happens. That's a materialist's point of view. To them, this vast universe is a chance occurrence. It springs from accidental or the combination of different elemental particles of matter. So there are others such as astrologers. There are people adherents to Vedas, believers in a personal God, idealists, nihilists, who hold time, which is a kal, karam, which is work, destiny, which is a niyati, and mere consciousness, samgyanam. And some people even believe in the void, the shunya. They think that determining factors of the Jeev's migration to a new body could be these. So that's why this subject is open to dispute. Rishi Yajnavalkya knew this very well, that there could be many different arguments about this. That's why he asked Artbhag to follow him out of the crowded assembly to a solitary place, where the two could discuss, argue, and come to the truth of this problem. Because when there are 10 people discussing something, there could be more than 10 solutions. We all know that. So he said it's a debatable topic. Let's go out and discuss it just between two of us. Because if the discussions were held and debated in the open assembly, the truth would have become impossible of any kind of a conclusion. So Artbhag and Yajnavalkya went out of the assembly and debated upon the subject of the Jeev's migration after death. From this mantra, some people they think that Yajnavalkya took Artbhag outside the assembly because the question put by Artbhag is too silly to be answered before that kind of a gathering of learned scholars and saints. It is too simple, too easy to be answered before a large public, for even the illiterate know that an ignorant person leading a worldly life after death takes another body according to his past karmas. So whatever the reason was, reason is not given over here, but we can just come to our own conclusion. The sage did not want to belittle the learned Artbhag in that assembly of saints and scholars. But at the same time, he wanted to answer the question, because that is this Sanatan Dharma does. Every question, whether it's a silly or whether it's a profound, it should be answered. Because if he kept quiet, he would be considered as defeated. That was another thing over there. Because you remember in the beginning, Yajnavalkya, without even going for any argument, told his people to take all those cows with the gold on their horns. So now he had to answer the question. So the sage took his opponent away from the court and furnished the answer to his question. So both argued upon the views of all important schools of thought on this topic. One by one, they discussed the theory of accidental causation, the doctrine of karma, naturalism, destiny, consciousness, and void also, the shunya. As to the cause of rebirth of an unliberated Jeev, they discussed all possible views which were current among the followers of different systems at that time. They also discussed the dissolution of the body, the disintegration of the elementary particles of matter, the disappearance, as it were, of consciousness from the body, and also the period interval between the death of one body and the birth of the next one, and where the Jeev stays during that interval. And when they came to the point of deciding the determining factors which go to form the materials for fresh body again, they dwelt on the subject of karma. As long as the soul is subjected to the law of karma, it steps out of one portal and is made to enter into another. So karma is the one which really brings us back into another body. Karam is the invariable factor which maintains the process of the Jeev's rebirth. It is true that individual is responsible for his actions. We all know that. But this does not, however, contradict the truth that he is moved like a puppet pulled by the strings of his past karma. That's why sometimes we feel like a puppet. I didn't do anything wrong right now. Why am I suffering? Or I didn't do anything particularly good, but why am I enjoying life? We feel like a puppet because we have forgotten the past karma. Our memory is very short. What exactly the past karma have to do in causing reincarnation? They talked about that. Because those karma, they create the necessary conditions by presenting the necessary stimulus and materials for the birth of another physical medium, for the manifestation and the exhaustion of a portion of the results of karmas. So long as the impressions of actions performed in the past births remain accumulated in the consciousness of the individual Jeev, they form the causal power. Causal means the cause for the any fruit or any future birth, and energize the sanskars also. And that's how we visualize ourselves different forms. And we return to the world of action in order to enjoy and suffer our own karma. There is a deep causal connection between the two events which go by the names of death and rebirth. There's a cause. And it all happens because of the grounds of karma. The various actions in the form of impressions form themselves into a series of links of one single chain. And the so-called accidental occurrences or events do come up spontaneously. We don't even know why this happened. We want to know the answer. We want to know the reasons, but our ordinary mind cannot understand the deep reasons behind it. So the law that governs the destiny of the Jeev determines rebirths and materializes the new body. This is the law of karma, or you can say law of cause and effect. This law operates upon the individual, and on account of it, one reaps what is pleasant and what is painful. The experiences of an individual, which are only manifestations of the impressions of his actions, remain dormant in the causal body or subtle bodies. Okay? So there's a causal body, there's a subtle body, and there is a physical body. Most of us are involved only in the physical bodies. When we go little deeper, we look at the subtle body. But if we go really deep inside, then we'll find the causal bodies. Because that's where the whole story is written. And who wrote it? We did. These sanskars, which are the results of the past experiences, discover or create necessary conditions in order to satisfy the unfulfilled desires. And those desires could be good. or bad or in between. Those desires could be extremely sattvic. Want to study more, want to help more. Those are also desires. And ultimately, the liberated person is who does not have any desire, good, bad, or mixed. Because desires are where? In the Prakriti part of our personality, and we are not that. We are here to do the sadhana, to experience our real self. And desires are not there. This law of causation continues as long as there persists even a trace of unsatisfied wish or desire. Even a trace. So we have to look within. Do we have traces of desires or do we have heaps of desires? And only we can erase those. When the totality of karmas in the form of actions, experiences, and impressions is completely exhausted together, the jiva becomes free. Free from individuality. This is not a jivatma anymore. It is just a Shuddh, Buddh Atma. So from here we can understand that a person enjoys good and pleasant experiences by virtue of his good actions, suffers pain and misery on account of evil actions, and the absence of these two, a person is liberated. So liberation from the good as well as bad. So this is what they discussed on the fate of an unliberated jiva who, on account of the body and organs, actions, and their impressions, takes a new body, performs fresh acts, enjoys pain and pleasure, and leaves off that body, takes another, again repeats the same process, and undergoes re-embodiment. That's what we have been doing and still doing it. In every embodiment, we have the opportunity. But only as a human being, we have the opportunity. So we are fortunate enough to be born as human beings so that we can get out of this cycle of birth and death. So with this, the Artbhag was enlightened by Rishi Yagyavalkya. They returned to the assembly. Artbhag resumed his seat and he stopped his further questioning. That means he was totally satisfied with the answers given by Yagyavalkya. So next week we will start next section. And a different priest is asking the questions now. His name is Bhujau. Because all these priests, they ask the questions. And Yagyavalkya, Rishi Yagyavalkya was there to satisfy them with their questions. So we'll start that next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for joining.